911. What's your emergency? A shaky voice responds, barely audible over the crashing waves. I think there's blood. So much blood. And she's not breathing. Cut to the idyllic turquoise waters of the Whitsundays, where the camera drifts over a private villa perched above the sea, bathed in golden sunlight. Just 48 hours earlier, that same villa had witnessed laughter, champagne toasts, and vows of forever. The bride wore white, the groom couldn't stop smiling, and everything felt like a dream. But paradise has a dark side. And for this newlywed couple, it would reveal itself far too soon. Their names were Daniel and Emily Carter. Married just 3 days ago, they were young, adventurous, and hopelessly in love. Their honeymoon was supposed to be the start of a beautiful new chapter. But as the sun rose on the third day, only one of them would walk out of that resort room, and the other would never breathe again. There were no signs of forced entry, no broken glass, no struggle loud enough to wake the neighbors. Just a blood-soaked sheet, a wedding ring left carefully on the nightstand, and a note that chilled even the most seasoned detectives. Love can be cruel when it lasts forever. What began as a romantic escape ended as a gruesome mystery. Was it a crime of passion? A meticulously planned murder? Or something even darker, hidden beneath years of secrets waiting to surface? Tonight, we retrace the steps of a couple who believed in love, right up until the moment it turned fatal. A dream honeymoon turned nightmare, in a place where the ocean meets the sky, and nothing is as it seems. Welcome to the Whitsundays. Welcome to the last honeymoon. Emily Hart wasn't just a glowing bride in a white dress. She was the kind of woman people remembered, 27 years old, full of life, and endlessly curious about the world. A schoolteacher from Melbourne, Emily had a passion for storytelling, especially with kids who needed a little extra help. Her Instagram was filled with sunlit classroom photos, handwritten notes from her students, and the occasional snapshot with Daniel Carter, her new husband. Daniel, 30, was a rising name in Sydney's fast-paced tech startup scene. Polished, charming, and always one step ahead, Daniel had co-founded a growing app that tracked digital wellness. He often joked in interviews about the irony. I help people unplug, but I haven't taken a day off in 4 years. His world was built on structure, ambition, and image. But with Emily, he claimed he had found the balance he'd always searched for. Their love story seemed picture-perfect. They met at a conference on educational tech, introduced by mutual friends. Their chemistry was instant. In less than a year, they were engaged. The proposal? A candlelit rooftop dinner overlooking the Sydney Opera House. Emily's Facebook caption said it all. He makes the chaos feel like home. But love stories are never as simple as they seem. Friends from Emily's side recall how quickly things moved. It felt rushed. Her college roommate Jess had said in a podcast interview later. Emily was always so grounded. But with Daniel, it was like she was living in a dream she didn't want to wake up from. And Daniel? His ex-girlfriend, Marissa Vale, had posted something cryptic a week after the wedding. An Instagram story of a shattered champagne glass with the caption, "Some things look beautiful until they cut you." Still, Emily brushed off any doubts. She was deeply in love, and Daniel had woven himself into every corner of her life. He'd visit her classroom, buy supplies for her students, even record little bedtime stories they'd play for the kids on Friday afternoons. Their joint wedding website was a digital scrapbook of memories. Beach trips, cooking disasters, late-night walks, and endless declarations of love. But behind those curated smiles, something darker was forming. A month before the wedding, Emily's sister Anna recalled a phone call. Emily had sounded distant. She told me Daniel had started getting strange. Not violent, just intense. Checking her location, asking for passwords. She said it was because he loved her and wanted to protect her. I told her that wasn't love. She didn't want to hear it. And there were other signs too. A deleted Facebook post from Emily's account that reappeared later during investigation. It was a quote, "Love doesn't demand obedience. It listens." Daniel, on the other hand, remained unreadable. His coworkers described him as focused, hyper-efficient, and fiercely private. He never really let people in, one former developer shared. But with Emily, we thought maybe he'd changed. Maybe he found someone who softened him. They married in a small, intimate ceremony by the water. The footage from that day is haunting now. Emily laughing, twirling in her dress, Daniel holding her close, whispering something into her ear as the camera zooms in. You can't hear what he says. But Emily's smile flickers, just for a second. Then came the honeymoon, the Whitsundays, a 5-star luxury resort built for romance. Private infinity pools, ocean views, and no prying eyes. Daniel booked the most secluded villa they offered. I want us to feel like we're the only people in the world, he had said. And for 48 hours they did. They posted pictures. Emily in a sun hat, sipping coconut water. Daniel with his arms wrapped around her waist as they watched the sunset. The captions were sweet, simple. My forever, lucky in love, just us. But no one saw what happened next. No one heard the silence behind the camera, the shift in tone, the final conversation that turned paradise into a prison. Because by the morning of day 3, Emily would be dead. And Daniel gone, vanished without a trace. And that's where the investigation begins. July 11th, 3:15 p.m. Emily and Daniel arrive at Coral Haven Resort, greeted with champagne and wide smiles from the staff. The receptionist, who later gave a police statement, described them as glowing, inseparable, like a couple in their own bubble. Their luggage was light, just enough for a short stay. Daniel insisted on privacy, requesting no housekeeping unless specifically called. We're here to disconnect, he said with a smirk. That night they dined by the sea. The resort's chef remembered Emily complimenting every dish. She was radiant, laughing over spilled wine and feeding Daniel bites of her dessert. Security footage from that evening shows them walking hand in hand back to their villa. On the surface, bliss, but the cracks began showing on day 2. July 12th, 11:40 a.m. Emily was spotted alone at the beachfront cafe, sipping tea with a tense expression. She was on her phone, whispering, shielding the screen. Staff overheard only one thing. I just need to know what that message meant. An hour later, Daniel arrived, and her demeanor shifted, smiling again, clinging to his arm. But her eyes, according to one witness, looked like they were somewhere else. That afternoon, they took a private snorkeling trip. The instructor noted Daniel being unusually quiet, distant. Emily, on the other hand, kept checking her waterproof phone case, something most tourists barely touch. Later, she uploaded a photo of them underwater with the caption, "Lost in blue, holding our breath." Poetic, but haunting in hindsight. That evening there was an argument. Not loud, but sharp, muffled voices. A slammed sliding door, then silence. The villa next door heard something hit the floor around midnight, but assumed it was luggage or room service. At 12:23 a.m., Emily posted a now-deleted Instagram story. A blurry shot of the ocean, with the text, "Sometimes love suffocates more than it saves." July 13th, 2:38 a.m. Security footage caught Daniel leaving the villa. Alone, calm, no signs of panic. He walked barefoot toward the beach, stood at the edge of the shore for several minutes, then disappeared into the night. By morning, the maid found the door locked from inside, and Emily wasn't answering. July 13th, 9:17 a.m. Room 204 at Coral Haven Resort was scheduled for light housekeeping. When housekeeper Maria Teva knocked on the villa door, she didn't expect silence. This was the honeymoon suite. Guests were usually up early, soaking in the view or calling for breakfast. But this door stayed closed. Maria knocked again. No answer. Protocol dictated she enter with a passkey if there was no response after 2 attempts. She hesitated. Something felt wrong. The do not disturb sign hung crooked, almost like it had been torn then rehung. When she finally opened the door, the scent hit her first. Not just the usual traces of perfume and ocean salt. No, this was metallic, heavy, the smell of blood. Maria dropped the fresh towels and gasped. The suite was chaos. The pristine white bed, once made up with soft linens and petals, was stained dark red. One of the pillows had a deep gash down the center, stuffing exposed like it had been slashed with a blade. The curtains fluttered from the open balcony, and the sea breeze pushed a thin, blood-stained bedsheet across the floor like a ghost moving through the room. The coffee table was overturned. 2 champagne flutes, one shattered, the other still standing, sat beside a half-eaten fruit platter. A single heel, Emily's, lay near the minibar, strap twisted as if yanked off in a struggle. But it was the bathroom that froze Maria in her tracks. The tiles were smeared with bloody handprints, the mirror fogged from the lingering steam of a late-night shower. Yet on it, clearly visible, 3 chilling words had been written in what looked like crimson streaks. "He knows everything." Maria ran, screaming. 9:26 a.m. The resort's security team responded within minutes. The room was sealed off. Police were called. An officer's body cam later captured the moment they entered. Recreation. Choppy radio static, heavy footsteps. Then, room 204. Jesus Christ. We've got a possible homicide. Blood everywhere. No sign of the victim. One glass broken, the other untouched. Looks staged. We need forensics. Fast. Emily Hart was nowhere to be found. No signs of forced entry. No fingerprints besides the couple's. No neighbors had heard screaming. Just the sound of something falling, quickly dismissed. But then came the real twist. 3:12 a.m. A text had been sent from Emily's phone to her sister, Anna. A single line. "Tell Mom I'm sorry." Anna didn't see the message until morning. By then, the phone was missing. Surveillance footage revealed Daniel walking out of the villa barefoot, wearing a black hoodie and track pants, his face unreadable. He carried nothing, no bag, no phone, not even shoes. The camera followed him to the beachside trail. Then he was gone. Further searches revealed something else. Emily's wedding ring was found on the nightstand, placed carefully next to her phone charger and a folded napkin. On the napkin, written in blue ink from the resort pen, were the words, "I can't pretend anymore." Her passport remained untouched in the safe, her suitcase still packed. There were no signs of Daniel checking out. No records of him boarding a flight or ferry. His wallet, phone, and ID were missing. But his watch, a pricey gift from Emily, was left on the sink, cracked. Blood analysis later confirmed most of the stains belonged to Emily. Traces of Daniel's blood were found only once, on the broken glass, possibly from a cut on his hand. The question wasn't just what had happened. It was why. A perfect honeymoon had turned into a locked room mystery soaked in blood. And the only 2 people who knew the truth? One had vanished. The other may never speak again. The first, police weren't sure what they were dealing with. A disappearance? A domestic dispute? A homicide? The crime scene had the markings of all 3. But as investigators dug deeper, the cracks in Daniel's perfect image began to spread. Detectives started by examining the villa's smart lock system. The logs revealed a curious pattern. Daniel's keycard had been used to exit at 2:43 a.m., but never to re-enter, meaning if Emily had walked out alive afterward, she hadn't come back either. But there were no other exits. No signs she'd ever left the room. Next came the phone records. Emily's final text to her sister, "Tell Mom I'm sorry," was sent at 3:12 a.m., but her phone had pinged off a cell tower 10 kilometers north of the resort. An hour later. How did her phone get there? They tracked a burner number that had contacted Daniel's personal line multiple times in the past week. The number was registered under a false identity, but it was traced to a man named Craig Holland, a private investigator. When questioned, Craig admitted Daniel had hired him to follow Emily weeks before the honeymoon. Why? Daniel believed she was cheating. No evidence was ever found, but that didn't stop the obsession. Meanwhile, Emily's bank account had a flagged transaction, a $2,000 cash withdrawal made 2 days before the trip. Detectives initially thought she might have planned to disappear on her own. But then they found something chilling in her email drafts never sent. "If anything happens to me, check Daniel's emails. I know what he did." When detectives subpoenaed Daniel's accounts, they uncovered a web of deleted messages, mostly from a secret folder. Among them was a conversation with a woman named Rachel, someone from his past. The tone was intimate, pleading. One message read, "She knows, Ratch. I think she read the old emails. If this blows up, it's over." Daniel had no alibi. No one saw him after 3 a.m. He hadn't checked out, but a $3,500 charge on his credit card revealed a flight booked at 4:07 a.m., one way to Jakarta. But he never boarded. That ticket was a ghost trail meant to mislead. Detectives now had a theory: jealousy, paranoia, and a man who thought he could outsmart the truth, but left just enough behind to be caught. Just when the case seemed airtight, a twist shattered everything investigators thought they knew. Emily's closest friend, Sienna, came forward with a secret she'd been too afraid to share. She handed detectives a sealed envelope Emily had given her a week before the wedding, with instructions: "Only open this if something happens to me." Inside was a handwritten letter, part love note, part goodbye. But what it revealed wasn't fear of Daniel's temper. It was guilt. Emily had been hiding a secret affair. Not just any affair, with Daniel's younger brother, Lucas. The letter read, "It was one mistake, but it changed everything. If Daniel ever finds out, he'll never forgive me. He doesn't know yet, I think." Suddenly, everything made sense. The obsession, the PI, the paranoia. Daniel hadn't been imagining things. He knew. The strange behavior, the sleepless nights, the cryptic messages weren't paranoia. They were signs of a man unraveling after betrayal. But that wasn't all. Forensics ran a secondary sweep of the broken champagne glass found in the villa. This time, they picked up a partial fingerprint that didn't belong to Daniel or Emily. It matched Lucas. Had he visited them that night? Was there a confrontation? When pressed, Lucas finally broke. He admitted to showing up uninvited, saying he just wanted to talk. But police now believed he had witnessed or even been part of whatever happened that night. Emily's death may not have been a solo act. Was this a crime of passion? A jealous rage ignited by betrayal? Or a twisted brotherly pact that went too far? One thing was now certain. The real story wasn't about a honeymoon gone wrong. On August 28th, just 3 weeks after Emily's disappearance, Daniel Carter was officially arrested on charges of first-degree murder, obstruction of justice, and tampering with evidence. But the most shocking moment came days later, when police announced a second arrest: Lucas Carter, charged as an accessory after the fact. The brothers were both implicated in a case that had gripped the nation, not just for its brutality, but for the betrayal at its core. The trial began 6 months later in a courtroom packed with reporters, grieving friends, and Emily's devastated family. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but the testimony leaked to the public painted a chilling picture. Sienna, Emily's best friend, broke down on the stand, clutching the envelope Emily had given her, the letter that had unraveled the entire case. Emily's mother wept silently throughout the proceedings, holding her daughter's wedding photo as if it were the last piece of her still left. Daniel's defense was cold, mechanical. He claimed he had confronted Emily about the affair. They argued, and she stormed out, never to return. But the evidence, his flight booking, the blood traces, the missing fingerprint, the burner phone, painted a far darker version of the truth. When the verdict came, the courtroom was silent. Daniel Carter, guilty on all counts. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. Lucas Carter, guilty of obstruction and accessory after the fact. Sentenced to 12 years. As the judge read the verdict, Daniel remained stone-faced. No regret, no apology. Outside the courtroom, Emily's father addressed the press. "We didn't get our daughter back, but today we got justice. That's all we had left to hope for." Justice was served. But closure? That's something they may never truly find. In the end, what began as a picture-perfect honeymoon in paradise became a haunting reminder of how easily love can turn lethal when trust is broken. Emily and Daniel were the couple everyone admired. Beautiful, successful, madly in love. But beneath the filtered photos and sweet captions was a storm of betrayal, jealousy, and secrets waiting to explode. Emily paid the ultimate price for a single mistake. And Daniel made a choice that destroyed not only her life, but his own and his brother's. Lucas, caught between guilt and loyalty, now spends his days behind bars, haunted by what he witnessed and what he didn't stop. We often think we can spot red flags. We believe we know what danger looks like. But what if the real danger isn't loud or obvious? What if it smiles in family photos and plans surprise proposals? How many more seemingly perfect couples are hiding cracks just beneath the surface? And how many of those cracks lead to something no one ever sees coming? So we want to hear from you. Do you think Daniel planned this all along? Or was it a heat-of-the-moment decision? Should Lucas have spoken up sooner? Or was he just another victim in all of this? And most importantly, do you believe justice was truly served? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's talk about it. And if stories like this make you look twice at the world around you, hit that subscribe button, because we're just getting started. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious. And remember, not every love story ends with happily ever after. Some end in blood.